We left off a week ago with the disciples receiving final instructions from Jesus. Jesus spent some time with the disciples, and then he ascended into heaven. And today we find ourselves focusing in on Peter, one of the disciples. In the last moments of Jesus' life, Peter denied knowing Jesus. He denied having any involvement with him, and he denied being one of the disciples. Yet Peter's example of leadership took a drastic nosedive in those moments. He was once a rising star of the disciples, the outspoken loudmouth. But his story doesn't end in disappointment. Peter was restored to fellowship with the risen Lord. And on the beach, Jesus charged Peter to take care of his sheep, which essentially means that Peter was charged to act in a pastoral manner to the coming church. Peter was instrumental in the early church. He witnessed the appearance of the Holy Spirit on the day of Pentecost and testified to the resurrection of Jesus. Peter also traveled around and spread the word regarding Jesus. In our text today, we meet Peter on the west coast of Palestine. Peter is called to Joppa, a town on the Mediterranean coast. Joppa today, it looks like a lovely place to go to. Joppa today is actually surrounded by the modern-day city of Tel Aviv. Joppa still survives, and Tel Aviv is right next door to it. Peter is asked to go to Joppa, and he goes out of obedience. Oddly enough, Joppa is the port city that Jonah goes to when he's fleeing in order to not have to preach to the Ninevites. Jonah goes there in disobedience, while Peter responds to the urgent plea for help. And we don't know exactly what the men told Peter when they found him. Did he know he was going to a funeral? Or was he summoned so that there wouldn't be a funeral? Peter might not have known that she was dead when they found him, but he did respond to the call to step into the darkness that surrounds illness. And before we dive too far into Peter's business in Joppa, I want to introduce you to a member of our congregation who has also followed God's call in her life to step into some of the darkest places. Give a warm welcome to Lauren Swink. You can put them in front, sorry. I didn't have time to do that.
It's okay.
So Lauren works with Youth with a Mission, also called YWAM, and she was here about a year ago updating us. So Lauren,
yes.
What have you done in the last year?
Oh, just a little bit of this and that. No, so I last saw all of you on my return from India and Nepal last January, and the last year, I've spent the last 6 months in Nepal, and at the end of my trip last year, I was asked by 2 different couples who were starting an ethical garment manufacturing company in Nepal, if I would pray about coming back and working with their ministry. And so I spent kind of the summer praying about it and decided that it was a right fit and where I should be headed next. And so in the beginning of November, I got on a plane and flew to Kathmandu, Nepal, and I've been there for the past 6 months, and I just got back like a week ago.
Yeah. So if you're using YouVersion, one of the questions I asked was how many of you could locate Nepal on a map? So can I get a show of hands for how many of you could, before this message, if you could, before it's on a screen, don't cheat, Jesus is going to know. Before, if you could all locate Nepal on a map. Okay, all right. So let's say like 25% of you.
Pretty good.
Okay. So Lauren, of all places in the world to go to, why Nepal?
Well, sometimes. No, I was going to Nepal in January of last year to meet up with one of our teams that was already there to transport them down to our ministry that I've been working with in India. And while I was in Nepal for 3 days, my first day there, I met a couple, Corbin and Katrina, and Preston and Miriam, and they were the ones that were starting this company. And I came into their house, and they started talking about the garment company that they wanted to start and employing women and survivors. That's a picture of the couple that I'm working with. And they're going to employ women who have been rescued out of trafficking and exploitation. And they found out that I had a background in fashion design, and they were like, sit down right now. Look, we have goosebumps. And I was like, okay, I've been in this country for like 2 hours. And they're like, you need to pray about coming back. We were praying in this room last night for someone who knew the fashion industry to come and help us. And I was like, well, I'm sure that person is still coming. And so anyways, after praying and talking with them, they were like, you need to pray about coming back. And one thing led to another. I kept in contact with them, and it just felt like the right fit for where I was headed in ministry.
And you were there for 6 months?
Yeah.
So what was a typical day for you, if there is such thing as typical?
Well, there is no such thing as typical in Nepal. It's a very crazy third world country. It was in a civil war until 2006, so the government's very unstable, and it's very developmental right now still, and everything's just craziness. So on a day-to-day basis, I would regularly work with helping with training the women with sewing and doing different things. And I would work with our master tailor, Dottie, and we would do pattern making and creating samples for customers that were selling their products in the U.S. and in Europe, because that's who we were manufacturing for. And I would work on our own designs. Or some days would be a little bit less normal, and it would be running down to find fabric in the garment places, and we would enter into a big warehouse, and it would be stacked full of just piles and piles of fabric, and you literally get to go digging through them looking for the fabric that you need. Or it would be not being able to come to work that day because there was a banda, which basically means that different people are on strike, so none of the buses are running and you can't get through the streets because they've barricaded the streets with burning tires and fun stuff like that. Or it would be other things like we would have to go with one of the ladies who works with us and go with her to take her daughter to the hospital to make sure that her daughter is getting proper care and getting seen. So it's always a little bit of different things going on.
Different kind of stuff like that.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about Poorna, the ethical garment manufacturing you mentioned before? Mm-hmm. Can you tell us what they stand for and then how they work in the lives of these women?
Yeah, so the word Poorna is Nepali for whole or complete. And we really felt like that was the right name for the company because we wanted it to become a place that these women could come out of this exploitation and these things that they've survived through, and they can start completely over. It can be a new life for them, and they wouldn't have to keep retelling their story or anything like that. It could just be a complete fresh start. And so the business officially opened up last September, and right now we have 18 employees, and they get trained to learn how to sew and knit. And we manufacture for companies in the U.S. and in Europe who sell their stuff through different stores. And yeah.
And so what are some of the values that Poorna holds very dear?
So part of our whole thing is we don't want to just create a job, but we want to create this whole environment of wholeness and kind of the completeness that our name stands for. And so along with providing a job, we also provide healthcare and savings accounts and money management classes and English classes. But also every morning we make a point to have a values time, which is kind of our evangelism, biblical value teaching, because their culture the mindset is so different from what the Bible says is correct and true, that we want to instill these values into them. So some of the values that we instill is like love. What is love? Many of them don't even know what love is. And when we talk about what right relationships look like and stuff, we asked one question the other day that was, when is it okay for a husband to beat his wife? And they were giving all these like times when it would be okay. And we're like, no, like it's never okay. And like even having to go to the basics of that and reteaching them like, no, this is what it means to love someone, and this is how you love someone, and it's never okay to treat somebody like this or like this. And just really instilling the values that people are all created equally and that they all deserve to be treated the right way, and they all deserve to be treated equally. So yeah, those are some of the things that we talk about during our like Monday values and throughout the week even, and like doing different things with them.
So what would an alternative be for this woman if Poorna didn't exist?
Mm-hmm. So Nepal's unemployment rate right now is at 48%. And there are many people are actually leaving Nepal to go to different Middle Eastern countries because they're getting work there, but the working conditions are even worse there too. So many of these women that have been rescued out of these exploitation and these trafficking situations are coming and being repatriated back into Nepal and coming back into Nepal, but their options are so slim because people that are already living in Nepal don't have jobs. And so many times they're having to go back into the sex industry that's already within Nepal. So they're just, it's just kind of created this cycle that if they don't have another opportunity, they'll either leave Nepal to find a job elsewhere, which is even harsher conditions, or they're once again put at risk of being trafficked again, or just working the same type of job that they've been working before. And so it really is, we've seen such an amazing need for the types of jobs that we're creating and just the opportunities that we've been able to help to create and provide for the people of Nepal.
Awesome. So what were some of your primary duties with the garment manufacturing?
So my official title is designer and product development. And so I would work on coming up with our own designs of products that Poorna can manufacture and sell ourselves, that the women can also put their touch of creativity on and their touch of life on and be able to market those and sell those. But I also worked with doing different pattern work for our other clients and helping with training the women and kind of making sure production was up to par and everything. So that was kind of my normal-ish duties on a day-to-day basis. But yeah.
Can you tell us about some of the people you worked with?
Yeah. So one of the main people that I worked with was Dottie, and he was our master tailor. And he came to work with us. Here he is. I love Dottie. He came to work with us in the beginning of the company, and he has 22 years of experience working in doing tailoring and sewing, and he really came out of a place where he started off as basically a house slave for the guy that he was apprenticing for. And so he has been through his own exploitations of sorts. But we were also nervous about bringing in a guy to work with the women, and he would have to be the right person. And he is just absolutely amazing with these women, and they all love him, and he is so kind and so willing to give of his knowledge that he has, that it's just amazing working with him. But yeah, he's quite the character to work with. He always makes me laugh and everything, and it was just such a joy to work with him and be able to learn from his knowledge and experience from the last 22 years, but also we would help each other and give each other technical knowledge and things like that. And I was a little nervous at first as to whether or not I would kind of step on his toes, because my job and his job kind of paired together. And so, but we got along so well, and it was so amazing to be able to share these moments with him of discipling him and sharing the Bible with him. And he grew up a high caste Brahmin Hindu. And for those of you that don't know much about Hinduism, that is like the top of Hinduism. Like, that's like the most respected. And so in theory, the way that the religion teaches him, he should have been very like superior and like, oh, I can't work with these people, they're below me, and things like that. But he's so open to Christianity now and to the gospel. And we actually gave him a Nepali Bible a few weeks ago, and it was the cutest thing I've ever seen. Preston and Corbin, the owners, gave it to him, and he runs over to my design area and he goes, Look, Miss Lowe, I've gotten a Bible. I have always wanted one. And it was just the most beautiful thing to see someone so excited about a Bible. And he was like, can I hide it here with you until the day is over? And I was like, you don't need to hide it, Dottie, but okay. And so it's just those moments like that of things that like we wouldn't think that was something that was so like spectacular. Like, oh, I got a Bible today. Yeah, that's cool. But for him, it was like he had always wanted one his whole life. And he is so excited about Christianity now and about the values that he's seeing and that we're teaching. And yeah, it's just been incredible to work with him.
What about Anu? I think we have a picture of her as well.
Yeah. Anu?
Anu.
So this is Anu. And she has, she came out of a very sticky situation. Her husband basically would run off to India on business, and he contracted AIDS and then gave AIDS to her. And then when he found out that she got it, he basically threw her out with their children and said, oh, I don't want you anymore. And so she has been taking care of her 3 daughters and by herself. And so she came to work with us, and when I met her, she was very closed off, kind of very angry, didn't really want to talk to any of the other women, didn't really want to socialize with anybody. And she was kind of very, there was just, you could see the walls that she had built up because of her past situations. And over the past 6 months, we have really been able to show really to her what grace means, and really show that we as a company want to be so much more than a job, by showing her that these moments when she comes late for work or things like that, and we sit down and we take the time to talk with her, like, this is why you need to be on time for work, and this is why it's good. And if she's one of the ones actually that her daughter also contracted AIDS, and she going by herself to take her daughter to the doctor, she having AIDS herself and that being a stigma in Nepal, she would not get seen, her daughter would not get treatment, the doctors wouldn't really want to like touch her or anything like that. And so we've actually had to go with her a couple times and make sure that her daughter is getting the right treatment and make sure that she's getting the right medication and everything like that. And just through these different like teachable moments and these moments of doing life with her and really showing that we truly value and care about her, I've seen these walls start to crack and start to break. And she is just really becoming like who she was made to be, and being able to see her face light up when she's at work now. And she has to bring her youngest daughter is 4, and she has to bring her daughter to work sometimes because sometimes there's no school and other things like that. But her daughter loves to run around with me, and we play different games, and just to see Anu's face light up that somebody is also investing in her daughter and also loving her through her daughter. It's absolutely incredible to see the transformation from how she was 6 months ago to just how she is now, and to see how much further that has the potential to go through everything that's happening with us. So, yeah.
So if you've joined us before for Lauren's updates, you might be familiar with her previous work in India in brothels, and also in a particular orphanage. And something recently happened with that orphanage. Can you give us an update on that?
Yeah. So for the last 2 years, I have been working with an orphanage in India. And for those of you who have been around when I've spoken before, I've spoken about Stephanie, the little girl who was rescued out of the brothel and put into this orphanage. And so I found out about, it was a month ago. I don't know what day it is. Anyways, during my time in Nepal, the orphanage was raided by the government, and the 35 children who lived there were all taken away and put into a remand home, which is basically a juvenile hall, but 10 times worse than what we have here. And the orphanage director was arrested and charged with trying to convert all the children to Christianity, because that specific area in India is becoming very Hinduized, and they're not able to. There's just becoming a lot of like anti-conversion laws within that area of India. There's a picture of them. So this was actually taken a week before the orphanage got raided. I actually was down there visiting them, and then a week later, I found out about this. So as of right now, all but 5 of the children are out of the remand home, and they are back on the streets and in the brothels. And the orphanage director is out of jail now, but he's still on trial. But there are 5 children that are still left in these remand homes. One of those is Stephanie. And so I just really ask you guys to stand with me and continue to pray for just the justice in this situation, and that the orphanage director would be able, a miracle would happen, and he would be able to open up the home again and be able to get all these children back off the streets and out of the brothels. And that Stephanie and all the other 4 children that are in this remand home, that they would be able to come out of there and be with their brothers and sisters again, and with their family.
And then where do you see God at work in this place and in this ministry that you've been put into?
Yeah. For me, I really think that there's these moments where things can look so hopeless, and I saw that myself when I heard about everything that happened with the orphanage. But then I go to work at our office in Nepal, in Poorna, and I walk in and I see the resilience that God gives people, and knowing these women's stories and what they've been through and the horrors that they've encountered, but yet seeing them every morning, namaste, Miss Lowe, and so excited to be at work, and so excited to just be with one another and be free and have these opportunities of life again. And those are really the moments when I know that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, and that I know that God's still who he is when he is really, because sometimes everything looks crazy, but I know because of those situations that there's still joy in the world, and that in the end, he's still going to be able to put everything back together. And seeing the beauty of the things that these women are creating, and just that they can go through such horrors and create such beautiful things and just have such joy and life and spirit again.